Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome. My name is Yulia. I am a part of Startup Lithuania team at the Innovation Agency, and it's my pleasure to be your host today. So I think everyone in this room will agree that AI technologies have huge potential on the economy, and the applications range from enhancing healthcare, combating climate change, to improving financial systems, or even cybersecurity. But with great power comes great responsibility and new questions. So how do we make sure that AI is safe, fair, and helpful for everyone? In order to establish some common rules for the use of AI, the European Union has established the EU Artificial Intelligence Act. Today, Lithuania is becoming one of the first countries in Europe to launch a pilot artificial intelligence environment, also known as AI sandbox. So this event will explain what it is, how it works, and how it can benefit all those innovators here in the room. So here's how our morning will look like. First, we will have 3 wonderful presentations from our expert speakers who will give us some overview of the new act and the launch and the pilots in the Europe. Then we will bring them all together to the stage to dig even deeper and discuss all the practicalities of it. But before we start, I want to give a huge thank you to all partners who worked really hard to make the sandbox come to life. So on behalf of the AI Hub, a huge thank you goes to the Ministry of the Economy and Innovation, the Artificial Intelligence Association of Lithuania, the Communications Regulatory Authority of the Republic of Lithuania, Infobalt, all the Lithuanian universities, and a countless of individual experts who really helped to shape this sandbox. As Romanas told me, they will know who they are, so I hope you do. And time for the applause, right? So seriously, we really appreciate your help and support in shaping this initiative. Now, I think that's enough of me, and let's get the thing started. So to kick things off, we first need to understand the rules of this new world we are in and why the EU AI Act is necessary in the first place. And our first speaker will guide us through this. So he is a law professor who heads the UNESCO Center for AI, New Technologies and Innovation for Society at Mykolas Riomeris University. He is also a board member of the Lithuanian AI Association, and he actually has co-founded a successful startup himself. So I think that makes him a perfect person to give us a clear look at the regulation and the new EU AI Act. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Paulius Pakutinskas.
Good morning. So I have a task to introduce AI Act, but I took it a bit wider just to provoke you, because I know the question. Do we really need regulation at all? Others are not regulating, so we will be not competitive, and so on and so on. So I will raise these questions, and maybe there will be some answers, maybe sometimes not. So should we regulate AI at all? So normally this question was very actual, and there were a lot of discussions, let's say somewhere 7 years ago. There was really good discussion, and we'll show what researchers are telling. So when we regulate when we have some issues, some risks, some problems, and as was perfectly introduced, EU like to manage some risks related to human rights, to safety, security. And as you know, these cases when, let's say, American products are not coming to EU market, even before AI regulation, that's because they do not follow our rules. And most of these rules are quite good, like data protection, protection of young people, and so on and so on. So that's nothing, what makes it so complicated. But that's the rules. So there are a lot of classifications of possible harm, risks, and so on. That's just one of you do not need to read very precisely. It's produced by OECD. So there are other different classifications, and as you know, all classifications are very different and depend on what values you weight. But in most cases, for us, it could look, it's theoretical. It's not real. Yeah. So I picked some cases, what are absolutely real, and most of them were before AI Act. That's not that because we now have an AI Act and they disappeared. That's absolutely not true, because we will have such issues in the future too, but we will have the rules how to manage. So there are mentioned some of the most well-known, some of well-known. So for example, Amazon hiring tool, where it was very clear discrimination of women. Compass algorithm is very famous. It was related to racial bias. Some other like facial recognition without consents. And so on and so on. So deep fakes, health safety, explainability issues, the same Compass is in this, AB and Watson. So we have really real cases where AI is making troubles. And these problems, these risks are quite big, let's say. So they are not just, some small issues. If we like to introduce some regulation, it can improve our understanding of the AI as such and increase our trust. So that is the question: do we trust? And there is quite good research published. And here you can see Lithuania is somewhere quite down. And what's interesting, what countries trust most? It's Nigeria, India, Egypt, China. That means these European countries, they are a bit mixed, but most of them do not trust AI in general. So that's not regulation, that's AI in general. So what does it mean? So that we are not comfortable with this, let's say, technology or group of technologies. So that means that we need somehow to manage it. And there is a very good question, do we need to regulate? As I mentioned some years ago, it was very few people who said that we need to regulate. What is happening now? So you can see that most of countries, including here it is Lithuania, but doesn't matter, we talk about 60–80% of population think that we need to regulate it. So in this process, that's really fresh research. So in this process, when we have AI Act and other documents, we think that is good thing. And what happened? We have AI Act, and it was like, what to do. Everything will be prohibited. A lot of rumors, a lot of things that it will kill my business. It will influence your business for sure, but let's look, is it really just trouble and problem? So let's start a bit wider. Is it just EU doing some actions and trying to solve it? No, it's not so, but what I intentionally stressed, that most of these, it's UNESCO, OECD, G20, UN General Assembly resolution, and so on and so on, that is soft law. What does it mean? That you can follow or not? It's just the guidelines in principle. And we think that in some regions there is no regulation at all, and that's not right too. And normally we mention China, United States as examples, and then they will be more successful, we think so. But if you look, China is regulating AI. Maybe not in this way what we think that it could be or would be regulated, but they have some rules, and they are creating rules for algorithms, for AI. Yeah, so and it's not very fresh. You can see 2021, 2019. So it's not so new. What about United States? You do not need to read this text, but there are numerous of laws and regulations, but they are very fragmented. Very fragmented, and that's not the case what we have in Europe. Okay, and at the same time we have this strange guy who declared that regulation will be not a priority at all. And yes, he changed some documents what were already done. So Trump's policy is invest, and to be number one. He do not care how it will be regulated, but do not disturb. Use a lot of money and have the best. Products, the best businesses in the United States. And they are competing a lot with China. In some cases, they are better, in some cases, maybe not. So what was very important, the strongest document which was issued by Biden, it was AI regulatory initiatives like executive order, quite famous, and that was rejected by Trump administration. So in principle, there are not very strong documents at the moment in United States as all country. But what does it mean? That means that states will work more. And there are some initiatives like in Colorado and other states they are doing, but sometimes they call it AI regulation and sometimes it's just data protection regulation. So we do not need to mix these topics. And when we have competition in the world, it's the best way to have international rules and to agree on the same principles and then to keep it going. And what happened? We have some convention. It was, by the way, signed in Vilnius last autumn, but it is still not working because we need some ratification. Some 5 countries need to ratify this document. And I think that's a really good way to go forward because there are clear rules. Maybe it's much more softer than AI Act, but anyway, there are quite clear rules. And there are other initiatives in UN level, so we are not alone. We are doing the same activities other countries are doing. So EU, what was very important to agree on definition. I'm always stressing this topic because you can't regulate without clear definition. Is it clear? Yeah. So there are some issues we can discuss. There are some explanatory documents, but anyway, here is quite good definition for lawyers. So it's not technical definition in general. So that's very, very good. So we will test it in some time period because it's complex, complicated, but AI is complicated too. Yeah, so we just need to have it. Because before we had quite crazy definitions. Systems what act like a human, so something like that. You know, it's absolutely crazy how you can measure that you act as a human. But anyway, that's very important to have it. And if it's wrong, so we can correct it. So that's a good start. And here we talk, I'd like to stress, we talk about hard regulation with very clear consequences. And when we talk about AI regulation, people often say that technologies will be prohibited. We will have problems in competition. So technologies are not prohibited. Here, usage of technologies in some areas are restricted. And there was very big topic how to do it in an efficient way, because you can't prohibit, because there are a lot of good AI solutions what are not harmful at all, but they are very good. How much effort do we need to spend on it? And there was a discussion how to make it happen in most efficient way, because we'd like to keep our competitiveness and so on and so on. And it was used quite business oriented. I think for business is absolutely usual model of risk levels. So that means that it's a risk-based approach. So if it's high risk, so you work harder. If it's low risk, so there is no, you do not need to do a lot. So there are several levels, like unacceptable, that means prohibited usage. So you can't use in some cases, and it sounds quite loudly, but we will look at the cases, and we can decide is it good or not. That's really discussable. And then it's high risk. When we talk on high risk, that's the biggest part of all regulation. So that's core of all regulation. And it's, what does it mean? That is not prohibition. That means that if you like to have high-risk products, you need to work a lot before to do not create risk and problems afterwards. Okay? So you need to do it in advance, not to go to the market and then check it. No, it's opposite. You need, because it's high risk, that's important areas. Okay? And when we go lower, lower, and lower, so there are less obligations. And in the basement is GPA models. That's not because they are least regulated or not so important, but just because this regulation popped up in the middle of process of approving of the document. Then pop up the ChatGPT, and everybody was stressed. Wow, it's changing everything. So maybe we need to change regulation. But it was decided no, just to add some additional requirements. So what are these prohibited areas? We can look. So it's subliminal manipulation, exploiting vulnerabilities of people, social scoring, assessing the risk of an individual committing criminal offenses, compiling facial recognition databases, interfering emotions in two areas, workplaces and educational institutions. That means that in other places you can use it. It will be mostly high risk, but anyway. Biometric categorization systems, real-time remote biometric identification in public spaces. So it looks quite narrow, quite clear, and it looks like it's good to prohibit. But when you go one by one, you can find that some these prohibitions looks like reasonable, but in some cases it can be useful for society. But anyway, that was a choice. It was done in very, very short time period for such big regulation and for such unclear situation, because you do not know a lot. So when we will talk afterwards, we will see that there are a lot of open issues, but it was done. Yeah. When we talk about this high risk, it's good to understand there are two annexes, Annex 1 and Annex 2. They are a bit different in regulation, but if to simplify as much as possible, so Annex 1, there are chosen these areas and activities what are already regulated because they are complicated. For example, motor vehicles, motorbikes, lifts, toys, and so on and so on. So what can be harmful right now without any AI? And what does it mean? That if you add AI, so these areas are already high risk. Okay, and there is quite a long list of these activities and the areas. And what does it mean? And it means for regulation a bit some complication, because we already have some institutions that are dealing with these issues. And there were a lot of discussions how to manage, how to arrange all this regulation setup to create a new body or new bodies in Europe, in all countries. And most countries chosen the model that there is one umbrella institution and other institutions what are dealing in specific areas. They are responsible for this area and in AI field. Another is Annex 3 is more related on some areas, and you can see it's biometrics not banned, critical infrastructure, education and vocational training. So it's you see that's really important. Employment, workers management, access to enjoyment of essential public and private services, law enforcement, migration, administration of justice. So if you go, sometimes it is a question, why they are so important? For example, employment. It's normal, so you just put your CVs and then you receive which is the best candidate. But that's due to bad practices and the risks of discrimination. We do not know how it was chosen. That means that is not prohibited, as I'd like to stress. But anyway, you need to do a lot in advance. So that's to understand how much obligations are raised by this regulation, AI Act. So there are quite a lot. Really a lot, and I think all institutions think how to make it as much as possible friendly, not complicated, because everybody understands that there are a lot of other laws and regulations, GDPR, cybersecurity, and so on and so on. So we need to, all businesses need to comply these. So I think that we have very good vibe in most of countries to do it more like a consultation, like a help to businesses, rather than punishment. Yeah, so, and that's the same in Lithuania, by the way. Yeah, that's deployer's rights. So deployer means this person who uses the products. And so, and the most sound thing is sanctions. EU like big sanctions, but not just because like big figures. EU like to keep painful for big techs, big businesses too. Not to be oriented to small business, but for big business. And here you can see this 35 million looks quite big figure, but in some cases for huge businesses it's not the biggest issue. But here you can see that it's up to 7% of annual global turnover. So then it's painful for these huge companies. So, but how it will be organized, it's complicated. It's complicated. You can see this picture. Maybe when you know it from inside, it's not so complicated. But anyway, the situation is quite complicated because where it is member state, how many member states do we have in Europe? Yeah, so it's 27. And some of them, they will have few institutions that will deal with this topic. So that's very important for us to be as much efficient as possible. And I, for provocation, used the Mario Draghi report, maybe you know it, where there was big analysis of EU regulation, of EU competitiveness. And there was not very nice finding, but it was obvious. Sometimes it's good to say it, yeah? So that means that it's good just for big businesses, and we are losing quite a lot on all this regulation. So there are some recommendations. It's in very concentrated form. But what is good, particularly in AI Act and AI regulation, it's not very straightforward and not very concentrated on penalties. So there are some very good things, what we will talk quite a lot here, that at the same time, all regulation is trying to help to create businesses which are creating innovations. And that we will talk, and that my colleague will talk much more about sandboxes. My colleagues, all of them, they will talk. You have a possibility to ask a lot of questions. And when we see that it's so complicated regulation, is it possible to make it your benefit, not just like, problem? I think yes. Why? Because when you have an unclear situation, uncertainty, it's very difficult to do business. Sometimes to agree on some clear rules, it's very good. So AI Act gives possibility to agree. Not everything is clear yet. But anyway, that is a start. And, if you comply EU regulations, so you are the best in class. So you can sell your products anywhere. And I think for quite a long time period. So you can just do it, so just turn obstacles into stepping stones, so just use it. And we have some tools what will help you, okay? So thank you very much.
Thank you, Paulus. And a very quick question for you. So you clearly explained that we need regulation, but let's say we have in this room some people that are now just starting to develop their AI startup. So when is the right time to start thinking about the compliance? Is it, right now once you have the idea, or should you go further once you're closer to the market?
I'm a realist. I know the startup from inside. In the very beginning, you think how to make it happen. You do not think about all this stuff like compliance. You have no resources to do it, and that's very obvious. Recommendation is to do it as soon as possible, as early as possible, and start from design, because if your idea is problematical, so maybe you need to use more or other efforts, or maybe to change some idea. If you're stuck on prohibited AI, so you will never be successful. Maybe you can use other markets, but anyway. So I think you need to think from your situation when you are able. And this sandbox topic is very good, that you can do it in quite early stage, in very professional way. So it's really good to use this tool.
Thank you. I think it's clear now. So once again, let's put our hands together for Paulus.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we just heard why we need the regulation. And now I think we will talk about, how to make it work, and how can we regulate AI without slowing down, the incredible pace of innovation that we are having. And our next speaker is an expert on exactly that. So she joins us from Luxembourg, where she heads the AI Innovation and Technology Division at the country's Data Protection Authority. And she's here to share the direct, very hands-on experience from Luxembourg's own regulatory sandbox. So we will hear how they are turning legal frameworks into supportive and human-centered environments. Please give a warm welcome to Sadia Bardai.
Hi, everyone. I'm very, very happy to be here at the Startup Fair in Vilnius. And thank you for the Innovation Agency of Lithuania for inviting me. I'm very delighted to have this talk with you guys. What we are going to cover today, so we'll move forward and into the continuity of what Paulus already mentioned. And don't worry, we won't go through the regulation all over again. That's enough for today. But I will just put the context. There is a new AI regulation. But what are the objectives of this new AI regulation? The context is that we are in the European Union, the single market, and the point is to have one legal framework for one product to ensure the harmonized regulation all over Europe. By that, you are startuppers. Can we say startuppers? Yes. You are startuppers, and if you put into the market your product in Lithuania, you can be able to sell it in Luxembourg, in France, or anywhere in Europe using the same legal framework. So the point of this regulation is the free circulation of goods and people within the EU market, ensure trustworthy innovation, and the last objective, I don't remember it, but I think if you read the first recital of the regulation, it should be okay. Something which is also important to mention is that the AI Act set the rules to develop AI systems, but one major aspect of this regulation is all the measures to support innovations. This regulation do impose requirements, do impose obligations for all the operators of the AI life cycles, from the provider of the product to the users, but you can't imagine all the means and all the efforts to think about how we can support you to innovate and to grow as a startup, to be a successful and a successful company and to launch your business. We all want to have our European champions. In Luxembourg, we want our Luxembourgish champions, and Lithuania wants the same. So there is a dual role to make sure that we do have trustworthy innovation. Do you think it's normal that a Barbie doll is more regulated than AI system? It has to follow some clear rules for us to be able to use AI system, to be aware of it, and when we are the subject of this AI system, we need to have clear transparency to know what they do with the information they have about us. And there is the focus on SMEs and startup. And the regulation is clear. I am a lawyer. I didn't introduce myself, but I'm a lawyer. And the thing is that there is in Article 62 of the AI Act, which imposed to member states to define clear rules for SMEs and startups to minimize the administrative burdens. The whole focus is to facilitate all of things for you. And why we do have a focus on SMEs and startups? Because you need our help first, but also because of your mindset. You move fast. You are agile, you are ambitious, and you want to put product on the market. You think differently. You don't think like us as a regulator. So who among our crowd is more fit for creating this new ecosystem for something evolving as fast as AI systems? So the point is to support you to make Europe great again. That's something. So the regulation is not all about burden, but it's to empower local businesses. And the main focus on my presentation is the mechanism to support innovation. There is a full chapter of the AI Act talking about it. And if you read this chapter, it's longer than the chapter of post-market surveillance of the regulation. So there is a real focus out of it. And the AI Act incorporates several mechanisms to promote that for you and to support you. One of those key features is the regulatory sandbox. What is the regulatory sandbox? It's a control framework under the supervision of a competent authority to let you know what you can do to be compliant with the regulation. You are a startup. You are not legal advisor. You are not lawyers. And do you need to have lawyers when you try to put your product into the market? In my personal opinion, you shouldn't. And as a public service, we should support you on that. And it should be like a benefits out of it. So this regulation, either it's questionable in some aspect, especially as a business, in a business perspective, it did take into consideration the needs of smaller businesses. And this approach acknowledged the diversity of actors involved in the development of AI system, rather than acting as a barrier. The law is positioned, and that might be surprising for you, but as a catalyst of innovation. Also, we also need to set up a clear framework to make sure that all the innovation that's coming out of your startup is responsible and trustworthy. And I call it tailored support and regulatory engagement. The main challenge for you, you don't know where to start. You want to be using those mechanisms to support the innovation. But do you have time to discuss with the administration when you need to develop your product, you need to sell your product, you need to make the promotion of your product, and you need to be known for yourself? That's complicated, and that's our job. And I can tell you, from Luxembourg, we can see all the effort that the Lithuanian Agency for Innovation is deploying to try to make something smooth and agile enough to be able to support you properly. And it's a tailored regulatory support. Why? Because as every individual, every startup is unique, and every project, and as AI systems are by nature, are heavily contextualized. As Paulus mentioned in the risk of the AI system in the classification under the regulation, they all depend on the intended purpose of the AI system. So we can use the same product altogether, but it depends on the target people who use it. If I use it in my garage to see who can get in, it's going to be fine. But in a school, it's going to be different. And also, we can support you to direct biases. I will just take an example. We are in Lithuania, that's a great place. But I think that if we use the historical data of Lithuania to access, I don't know, jobs, if I put my picture, I might not pass. Because why? You don't have any training data to have to take into consideration my profile, even though I'm very smart. But that's just for joking. And also something which is very, very challenging for the member states is to change the role of the regulator. We are now part of the project. We are here to support you, and we are not just here to enforce. We are no longer in the regulatory tower. We are in the regulatory tower, but not at the ivory tower. We are here, part of the project, and we are also a stakeholder of your success. So I'll give you an example of what we've done in Luxembourg. We launched a pilot we called Zonkust. Zonkust is the Luxembourgish word for sandbox. And we launched this regulatory initiative with startups in our ecosystem. And it was very interesting, and it was easier than the one of the AI Act, because as a competent authority for data protection, we had this focus. But the thing is that the immateriality of AI systems, it's that the competent authority are distributed. If you need to have an AI system developed for the education purposes, I might not be relevant enough. And we might have maybe the Fundamental Rights Authority in charge of education, which is more competent as a subject matter for that. And the point, as the moderator asked, it's basically to be proactive, to discuss the issue before it occurs, about the risk. And what we want to do, to really have this discussion at the earliest stage of the project. And the collaboration, we would like to build up trustworthy innovation, but we need to also trust each other. And if you need help, when you ask help, no matter what is the subject, you need to be honest and transparent on what you need. Otherwise, we can't help you. Or at least not, it might not be satisfactory. And also experimentation. You try to develop a product, you try to develop a system, you try to develop a business. It might not work, but it requires agility, and we'll need to find solutions together. So that's the Same slide. So basically what happened, and the point, it's open dialogue. We discuss together. And something that became as a real lessons learned is that we talk about AI, we talk about innovation, and I was very enthusiastic when I launched my program. So I'll be working on project, and I'll be working with experts and shaping the future. But behind that, there are all human beings. The one who decides to put an AI system into the market, it's a businessman. It's you, as an individual. The one leading the project is you. The one defining the priority is you. And all about that, the point is to share learning together and to discuss as human beings. By that, I realized that I was all enthusiastic about my project, and we started discussing about our regulatory concerns, and we didn't share the same language. We all use the same word with different meaning behind. So the thing is that we all go home with our homework, do our things, we come back, and it's not what the other expected. What is AI? Actually, we are not really sure. The definition of the regulation, okay, it's good for me as a lawyer, but for the developer, it's something completely different. Governance, it's even more elusive. Trustworthy, depends. What do you trust and what you consider trustworthy is something very individual. So what we decided to do is to create a network, a supporting ecosystem. So just us as a regulator and just the innovator in part of our project, we know that we don't know it all. Even in the regulatory aspect, you have an autonomous vehicle. I think I'm smart, but I don't have a clue about autonomous vehicle regulation, ITS and so on. Medical devices, I know it's very important, but what are all the requirements? So we kicked off the REMI initiative, which is Regulators Meet Innovators in Luxembourg 2 days ago. And the point is to create the full ecosystem, to put all of us around the table and to define some use cases and to build up some working groups. And we are all the same stakeholders. We have different regulators from our country, financial sector, product safety, I think the labor administration also is there, and we are all working on the project. And the point also is for us as a regulator not to be alone in our office, in our desk, asking what is important for them. The best way to address your own concern is to ask you. And we are not doing business analysis, but the point is to be close to the field, to what's happening, where things are happening, to ask those questions. So the point is also to extend the learning and the dialogue for all the community to be beneficiating for all the efforts we are doing, and to provide an efficient way to support innovation. The point, even if we talk about AI, if we talk about innovation, today it's AI, maybe tomorrow it was going to be something else. And the AI we know today might be the AI, it's going to be obsolete in 5 years. AI, they were talking about it in the 80s. And now we just perceive it so differently. But the point, I think that AI systems don't need me, they don't need my support, but it's you, it's all the human being leading those projects. And that we talk about the human-centered and the human in the loop, because the human is not outside of the loop. It's the one providing this system. So I think I was shorter than the schedule, but I'll be happy to answer your question if you have any. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Sadia, for such a positive presentation. And I think you stressed a couple of times that the government is actually really motivated to support startups and not to burden them. So maybe you already seen, some examples from your work. What is an like an unexpected outcome or positive impact that startups can feel when they actually start to collaborate with regulator instead of trying to avoid them?
Well, the thing is, it's a little bit more nuanced, and it's not that positive so far. Why? Because startups don't have time, and that's the reality. So the thing is that to attend a 2 hours event, 2 hours meeting with the regulator, they need to develop their product. They need to sell it. And they also need to know what we are developing for them. So now we are no longer waiting for the startup to come over to our initiatives, and we are going to the startup and the ecosystem in the incubators, the startup accelerators, to reach them and to let them know that there are mechanisms, there are measures to support them, there are facilitations for them, and we just try to make the things are the most affordable as possible. If possible, we try to make them for free, but we just need to voice even louder what we try to make to support them and not just burden the innovation through regulation.
Yeah, and I think the message is clear that startups should actually go and talk, and it's for their own benefit, not just sit and wait for what comes next, but go talk with them, share your experiences, share the problems, the challenges that you are having or seeing, right? And let's make it work.
Yes.
True.
Thank
you
you
so much, Sadia. Thank you so much. So, we heard the European context, we heard the view from Luxembourg, and I think now it's the perfect time to bring it home here to Lithuania. So our final speaker is the person leading this initiative here in Vilnius. He is the head of the AI Hub at the Innovation Agency, and with practical startup experience from Silicon Valley, as well as some experience growing our local ecosystem in here, he combines the best of both worlds. So today, he is here to present the official Lithuanian AI regulatory sandbox. Please join me in welcoming Romanas Zontovičius.
Thank you. It happened to be so that I lived in Silicon Valley for quite a few years. And despite all the good things that you heard about it, there's one interesting fact, that there are earthquakes over there, and actually quite a few. So the first one, you never forget the first one that you feel, but then you always hear about it around it. Oh, did you hear there was an earthquake? So my first reaction, and I think it's really like a human reaction, is to like a panic a little bit, like, oh, what happened? Earthquake. But then, as time went by, as years went by, I started asking myself this question: okay, where did it happen? How strong it was? And the most important one is who got affected? Did the people got affected? Any deaths? Any injuries? Any buildings got destroyed? And that puts everything in perspective, right? It's on the level of how strong it was and who got affected. So when it comes to EU regulations and on the EU AI Act, I think businesses should apply the same logic. You need to ask, who is affected by this new law? If you're the provider, kūrėjas, if you're making an AI system, yes, you are affected. Pay attention. Importer, distributor, deployer, diegėjas, jeigu diegiate AI sistemą, yes, you are affected. And the product manufacturer, if you're putting AI system into your existing product. Even more important question is, who is not affected? Maybe you're not affected. If you're using AI for personal, for non-professional use, it's fine. Military, defense, national security purposes. Anytime the product is in the development phase of it, it's fine. And as long as product is not on the market, EU AI Act does not apply, so no worries about it. But now let's bring it home, let's bring it closer to our sandbox. So who is our client? We asked ourselves the same question, and we looked at the act, and we looked at the same risk categories. And this is how we're going to look at the products and startups who bring the products to the startups to our sandbox. We have unacceptable risk. I put it in red. It's sort of self-explanatory. We can't help you if you're developing one of those products. I'll give a few examples later. Minimal risk, there is no regulation for minimal risk products, so we can't help you either. And this leaves us with high risk and limited risk AI solutions. So just to cover unacceptable risk, social scoring, AI-based manipulation methods that exploit the vulnerabilities of the specific group, real-time biometric identification in public places without the reasonable cause. We don't do that. Individual criminal offense, risk assessment, or individual crime prediction. There is a great movie, Minority Report, published maybe 20 years ago with Tom Cruise. I think that movie is more relevant now than it was when it was published. Check it out, it's on Netflix. And emotion recognition at the workplace and education institutions. We, as a Europe, decided that we're not going to do this. Now, this leaves us with the other two categories that I mentioned. So it's high-risk systems is the first one. So this is everything that has to do with our critical infrastructure, our power plant control systems, how the water is delivered, electricity, roads, traffic lights, elevators, aviation, HR hiring tools, scoring students during the exams, fintech tools, which determine whether you get a loan or not. Then all the AI systems used in healthcare and biometric identification systems. The very easy way to determine whether the system is a high-risk system is to ask yourself this question. If it can affect the human's health in a significant way, or future, whether you get accepted to the university, whether you get accepted to this job, whether you get a loan or not, that means it's a high-risk system in most cases. And what it means that the high-risk systems are always need certification, with some exceptions. That means that if you're a developer, you develop a high-risk AI system, it will need to be certified by a third party with some little exceptions, and we'll go over them once you join our startup, our sandbox. We decided to leave this door open for the limited risk systems. Examples of those are, well, they sound simple, right? Those are like chatbots, video and image generation tools, voice cloning applications, and you might ask, why did we do that? So we understand that companies, when they come to our sandbox, they might be developing a limited risk product in the beginning, but during the course, once they find out all the information that they're going to get from the expert, they might decide that they're actually capable of developing a high-risk system, or decide just to do different product within the sandbox, and vice versa. Somebody might be very ambitious. They might come thinking that they will develop and finish this high-risk system. However, it might be later, it might turn out to be too complicated or just not worth it, and they might lower the risk category. What's important to mention, certification doesn't happen, in a second. It could be lengthy period. It could take half a year, and it could also be costly. Especially for the smaller companies and startups. So that's why we leave those two categories within our sandbox. Here's some numbers. As of now, it's planned as a 3-year project. We plan to run 5 batches, 5 cohorts. The length of one cohort of one program is 5 months. We plan to have 12 companies in one cohort, in one batch. And the total number of companies that we plan to help is around 60 in the whole 3-year period. So when does it start? Today is a launch event, right? We start our application process. You'll be able to apply starting November of this year, just in a month. And then the first batch will start early next year, February of 2026. You might wonder what is the price. So it's free, there's no money involved. However, you will have to cover it by your de minimis, and every company in Lithuania gets de minimis, quite a few thousands for a couple years. So there's no money involved. Where do you find the most relevant information? Currently, the page is in Lithuanian only, but we'll have it in English soon. You can just scan this code, or you can always visit Innovation Agency, paslaugos reguliacinė dirbtinio intelekto smėliadėžė. How does this process look from the company perspective? So first of all, you need to submit your application. And what's important in that application? There are a couple things. First of all, your product must be either in the high risk or the limited risk category. Then you are eligible. You get additional points if you come with, if you're creating not a company, just company-wide innovation, but if you're creating a regional or worldwide innovation, you get more points. And also, the higher your TRL level is, the more points you get. We expect that you will come with the TRL 5 so you already have like a working prototype when you come to Sandbox. After that, our jury, our expert will evaluate your application, and we will pick 10 to 12 lucky participants for the first batch. Right away, we'll start with group consultations. We call it, you might think of it as an AI Academy. It will last a month and a half, and we will cover 11 topics. I will show you a bit in the next slide what those topics are. After AI Academy, we'll do individual consultations. So every startup will get individual help from those 11 experts that we have based on their specific needs. And startup will get up to 80 hours to talk to one expert, which is a significant help when you have in mind that we'll have 11 of them. So that's a lot of hours. Another two options available in the Sandbox. They're not mandatory. We thought that during the Sandbox process, during the program, some companies might need to change their product. And as it usually is, you need HPC resources. You need high-capacity computing resources for that. So we have reserved a certain amount, certain hours for the ones who will need those high-power computer resources. And the second thing, which is even more important than the first one, is the ability to test your product prior to certification. I mentioned already that it might take long and it could be costly. So since we have our regulator, in Lithuania it's RRT, Ryšių reguliavimo tarnyba, since we have a regulator in our project, under certain conditions, with their overview, certain products will be able to launch on the market, real conditions, with the supervision of the regulator. I think this requires applause, actually. But to mention that, so is at every other country. Every country will establish every other EU Union member state will have to establish. It just happens that ours is one of the first ones. But, and the same rules will apply to other regulators in other countries. And at the end, you'll be issued an exit report. This is how it's called under EU AI Act. It's basically your certificate that you successfully graduated the program. Now, very quickly, those are the topics of those group consultations of AI Academy that we're going to cover. It's, of course, EU AI Act compliance, AI ethics, fairness, AI policy development within your company, AI literacy, strategy, data privacy and protection, cybersecurity and adversarial attack prevention, EU AI standards. They're very important. They're still under development by the European Commission, by EU. Then intellectual property, of course, IP, risk management systems, various EU tools for AI development, and the regulator will have their own topic, their own module. So it's a most direct access for you to talk with the regulators, to come through the sandbox. So this is the last slide. So most important things, you already know that you need to know what risk level is your product falls under EU Act, right? Which risk level? What's the risk level? What's the risk level of your product, basically? So sometimes you can't tell. You can't just Google it. We are developing the tools ourselves. There's no official tool just yet, but we're working on that, and eventually there'll be an official one. But if you want to play and test it out right now, you may just Google EU AI Act Compliance Checker. There are a lot of private tools that you could use even now, but check our website. We hope to launch it when the sandbox launches, when the program launches. Then another benefit of how we'll help the ecosystem is everybody, any member, you don't need to participate in the sandbox. You can ask the question over the email or over the online form through our website on basically any AI regulation questions. So we're looking forward to hear from you. And there are also planned quite a few thematic public events for different sectors, for public sector, for medtech, for edtech, for fintech during those 3 years. So a lot of networking opportunities. On the website, you'll also find the case studies once we have it, success stories, and frequently asked questions. Now, for those 60 companies that I mentioned that are going to participate in the sandbox, they get group consultations, that's AI Academy. They get individual consultations up to 80 hours, and with a single goal to make sure that they're ready to go and certify their product, or to find out that at the end that they don't need certification. This is fine too. HPC resources, product validation in the market before the certification. I already mentioned that. I just want to stress why I put this asterisk here is because it's not necessarily for everybody. Not everybody can do it, everybody can apply, but you need a regulator's agreement. So you will need to write up a plan, and the regulator needs to agree to that plan to give you permission. Because as you understand, normally your product needs to be certified first. So if you want to avoid that, regulator's overview is needed. And the last thing is we think and we hope that it will help Lithuanian businesses launch their products faster in EU market. Here's an email. Here's my LinkedIn. Connect, ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramanas, for giving such a clear roadmap of what we will see. And before we get our stage prepared for the discussion, let's maybe take a step forward.
Okay.
I want to ask one question, and I think it's perfect time, to highlight once again the things, because you mentioned that not everyone will get invited to the sandbox, right? Only 60 companies. So what, in your point of view, the ideal candidate to apply and to participate in the sandbox?
Well, so it's not an invite thing. We would love that option, but it's open for everybody. There will be a application process. You will simply apply, and if there's more than 12 participants, we're happy to accommodate everybody. What is really important, the most important criteria is high-risk system or limited risk system, just because this is what matters. If it's an acceptable risk, we cannot help you, sorry, you can go somewhere else. If it's minimal risk, we also can't help you because there's no regulation for minimal risk. So the main requirement is high or limited, and I think those are the most important products anyways. Those are that really matters.
And if the startup is still unsure if that's a high risk, they can contact you?
They can contact, and we'll help them determine whether it is or not.
Great, sounds good. Once again, applause for Romanas. And then I think now it's time to, combine all the great minds in the room and pick their brains a little bit. So Romanas, please take one of the seats. I would also like to invite Sanya to the stage. And we have one more guest. So we are delighted to be joined by Benediktas Girdvainis, an advisor at the Ministry of Economy and Innovation, where he focuses on ICT and AI policy. So let's give a warm welcome to him as well. So we have this major new regulation, right? And we have these sandboxes. But I think the important question is, how it is beneficial for all those people creating innovations here in the room. But before we go into serious questions, I want to, get to know you as person. So one quick icebreaker for everyone. From your experiences, you're listening to a lot, reading a lot. What is one practical application of AI that seems very exciting to you right now?
I might be biased, but I really want self-driving to take over the world. I'll be very short. Self-driving cars never drive drunk, never drive tired, never drive nervous. They don't care, they just bring you from point A to point B without adventures. And there's so many deaths on the roads, even in the US. Imagine the Boeing crashing, 300 people die in car accidents, and we take it as normal. So self-driving cars, 0 accidents. Just nothing happens, but 300 people come back home.
Cool.
Yeah, I can continue. For me, I really enjoy driving, so I couldn't kind of really appreciate getting a robot driving me. But one recent development that really shot up and I think was really impressive was prompting video games. And I think this is, even though I'm not a big video game player, but at the same time, I've seen AI develop previously in video games when I was a bit younger. And what we have now in the games as well as even in their development really creates this huge new leap, I think, technologically in video games.
Okay, a fun one. And Sadia, for you?
And for me, it's not really, there is an AI in it, but it will be the robot. To have a humanoid robot at home just to do everything, the laundry, cooking, the homework with my daughter. And for me, to have the time to read and chill. And I think it's going to be the robot. I have the Thermomix, but it's not sufficient. It's not helping my daughter with its homework.
Lovely, very different approaches. But yeah, that's the AI. Yeah, it's in every aspect of life now. Okay, so let's move to more serious questions now. So, Romanas, you laid a fantastic foundation explaining how the sandbox in Lithuania will work. But moving from that vision that we have now to reality, what do you think is the biggest challenge that the startups will face in terms of trying to comply with the EU AI rule, and how the sandbox can actually help them to overcome those challenges?
One single biggest challenge, and let's address the elephant in the room. I was talking about the certification process. Certification happens, you need to certify something according to the standards. Standards are still in development. So startups just need to keep an eye on it. They will roll out, as a EU Act rolls out in stages, standards will roll out in stages. And once the standards happen, the accreditation institutions will start working because they'll know what standards are there, and then the startups could contact them and get certified at those institutions, which do not exist as of this second. So that's, I think, the biggest challenge.
Okay, so you have to go to sandbox, to get through this, and it will be easier, right? Yeah, let's hope so. Okay, Sadia, Luxembourg has been a pioneer in this area. So from your experience, not only limited on the sandbox, but overall, what do you see is the biggest misunderstanding that startups have when they engage with regulators?
So the good side of it, that the misunderstanding are not specific to the startups. Even public institutions and large companies do have the same question. And I think that the major one is that if we talk about regulatory sandbox, it's not a regulatory waiver. It's not because you are working with the regulator that will say, oh, this part of the regulation won't apply to you, it's too complicated. Unfortunately, we are binded by the regulation, and we'll try to support in that regards. And also the vocabulary. Misunderstanding really comes from the language we all use, from the startup hype, technological semantic, the regulatory semantic as well. There are different meanings for the same words, and it makes things very, very complicated. And sometimes the major effort we have when we try to collaborate with the private sector, especially, it's to gain agreement on what do we mean, to clarify the understanding, and that's very, very important. And it's time-consuming, it's effort-consuming, but I think it's now a baseline, and to really start the conversation from the basics. And the basics is not because we are not at the same level or the one is smarter than the other. We just come from different backgrounds. And sometimes also, when we use the same words and we understand each other, we just don't need to go through a full sandbox project. 1 hour discussion is enough. A well-written email gives all the information, and you don't need to work for that much. The required effort is not sufficient, but the regulation is written in a way that it's not very intuitive. The regulators and the innovators don't understand it the same way, and sometimes just to clarify the point, do avoid a lot of misunderstanding, or at least bypass them.
So the conversation might not be very easy at first, but it's totally worth it to have it. You just need to have some patience, right?
Yes.
Ramanas, you want to add something?
If I may add, another challenge is that everybody will be learning here. Startups, companies, businesses will be learning how to adapt. We as a sandbox will be learning. We'll find out what cases are happening, what the real life cases exist here in Lithuania. Regulators will be learning. So the dialogue and the communication is key, so we all speak the same language. I can just repeat what Sadia's point.
Yeah, everybody's learning, so let's have some patience for each other, right? Okay, let's zoom out a little bit. And Benedictas, from a government perspective, the sandbox is clearly just one part of a bigger plan and bigger ambitions. So could you walk us through a little bit about how this tool connects to the overall strategy of Lithuania and that big ambition of becoming AI country?
Sure. Maybe let's start with some quite boring statistics. So at this moment, we only have 8.8% of companies in Lithuania using AI to some extent, whereas in Europe, this average is 13.5. Seems that there's quite a big difference, but if we look into our aims written down in the digital decade before 2030, we need to have 75% in either AI, cloud, or big data using companies. So it's quite a big stretch. I don't believe that we can kind of achieve this, especially since you probably know in Lithuania, most of the companies are basically just very, very small ones, and not all of them need AI. There's actually an MIT study published quite recently which said that 95% of companies were not receiving return on investment for their generative AI adaptation. So this is quite a big problem. I think if you don't start with a real problem, and AI is barely a tool to solve the problem. And if we start abusing, these statistics and try to force companies to use AI for basically no reason, we'd have a problem. So at the government, we have this kind of different view on this. And we see that we need to kind of look at the risks, look at the benefits of AI, and we need to kind of make the environment as suitable as possible for companies, also public institutions, as well as science institutions, to develop as well as adapt AI. And this is where we came across the AI Continent Action Plan, which was also published quite recently by the European Commission. And it basically split these environments into 5 pillars. So it's infrastructure, data, strategic adoption and development, as well as talents and experts. And then the 5th one is regulation, so working on simplifying that. And sandbox is a really big part of this. Regulation is seen quite a big challenge for companies. Almost 50% of companies have viewed this as a particular obstacle in scaling their businesses, and that's quite a big problem. But the biggest problem that we probably noticed in Lithuania is that we barely have anything in terms of HPC infrastructure. So there is infrastructure at the universities, but it's very limited. It's capped at basically what the universities need. So that's quite a big problem, and that's why we came up with the idea of giving this proposal to European Commission for an AI factory. So now we're still waiting for the answer. The official answer should be released tomorrow. So keep your eyes out for that. Basically tomorrow in midday, probably just after lunch, you'll hear about that. In terms of other infrastructure things, we're also connecting with Poland as well as Latvia and Estonia. And we're creating this big proposal for not 130 million, which is the project budget for the local factory. It's going to be 3 billion or maybe even more. So that's in terms of infrastructure. With data, we're pretty much good. We're, I think, 7th in Europe in terms of open data. I mean, of course, there are some gaps that we need to fill, but this is pretty good comparatively. If we speak about the infrastructure, it's also going to be an ecosystem as well. So services as well as events and everything like that will be also available for the ecosystem. And we're gonna probably train around 3,000 new AI specialists, which is quite a lot, I think. And then if we speak about regulation, it's the AI sandbox for simplifying the regulation of EU, which is mostly needed. And I think my colleagues spoke a lot about that. So just to kind of circle back and just have this one idea that I think you need to bring back home about what the government is doing is that we're trying to basically create the best environment for AI development and deployment in the region by 2030.
That sounds very lovely and a lot of opportunities. And I really love to hear from, government part that they have those goals, of having a lot of companies to adopt AI, but they are also understanding that not everybody has to do it. It has to make sense. It has to solve problems. But if you want to do it and if you see the opportunity, there are a lot of support that you can take care. And you touched a little bit of strategy, and I want to continue on that topic and go through Stadia as well. The question is, there's that new EU AI Act, and from what you're seeing, how much freedom does this country have, to create a sandbox the way they want and to adapt to the national strategy? Or is there a set of rules that each country has to follow? So how much freedom there is?
So, as a lawyer, I would say it depends.
The usual answer.
The usual answer. It depends, and we must have some freedom due to the context and to our national ecosystem. The thing is, what is a startup? If you talk about a startup in a country like France or Germany, if you put it at the level of Luxembourg, it's a big, huge company, it's disproportionate. And we don't put the same figure, and some things, and for Lithuania it's basically the same. Sometimes when we talk about France or it's out of proportion for us, for what we do have and the means and the resources and the skills. But we are in a single market. We are in Europe, and we need to have a single and harmonized framework, and to have clear rules, not to distort the market. It wouldn't be fair for the market to have a more, let's say, agile sandbox in Luxembourg than in Lithuania. If it's easier to come, so just the businesses will just come over to us to put the product into the market, and it might not be equal for the ecosystem if you cannot afford to come over to another member states. But that's a risk. And also, as I mentioned earlier, we are all human beings leading the project. And there are some businesses I'm not a big fan of some business model because I have kids. I think it's not very important. But the thing is that they should be able to innovate, and I cannot censor them because I disagree with that. So we need to have a transparent and equal access for all the businesses. And this is something that now it's becoming more real in the context of the AI Act. Now we are launching the pilot, and we had 3 businesses that applied in our regulatory sandbox, and they come from the same sector. So they are developing high-risk AI system for HR purposes. The point is that we need to select all of them because they are facing the same issue. They all need something. But selecting one among the other might be giving a competition advantage to one among the other. And at least to have this equality and transparency, and it's difficult because they don't have the same level of maturity. They don't have the same energy to commit to the regulatory dialogue. But in the situation of fairness, we have to align with that. And I think that at the European level, it should be harmonized in a way, but we need to remain this flexibility, taking into account our local context and also the reality of the ecosystem. It's evolving fast. What is applicable today, what is hype today, might be obsoleted in 2 years. And we need to be fit and not to be ourselves obsolete in 2 years. So we need to be able to change quicker than the EU regulation.
Yeah, that's nicely said, that we have to have some common rules, but we still have to be flexible, right, and adapt. And you touched a point that prior to launching a sandbox, you don't know what kind of companies will come, right? And have to accept them, whatever comes, right? So I want to, follow up on that and ask Romanas, in this case, I think it will be the same in Lithuania, right? You will not know what kind of companies will apply now, right? You will have to.
We'll know. No.
You can guess, right?
We can guess. Educated guess.
But you will know. So how will you tailor the support to, different sectors, different stages of maturity and things like that? So will it be, one model that has to fit all, or will you have some flexibility inside, to consult them in terms that they need to get the support?
I'll tell you some insights. So when we first, maybe more than a half a year ago, when we first started creating the concept of the sandbox, I remember the whiteboard and just a couple of us sitting there and just brainstorming. One of the first sessions was, okay, so what do you need to create an AI product? You need HPC resources. Yeah, let's write down HPC. Everybody will get HPC. Then what else do you need? Oh, you need data. Let's write down open data. And then we decided it was clear that we can't buy infrastructure, and that not everybody will need HPC resources. Not everybody. Some solutions don't require HPC, and so we can't give it to everybody because it's a very, very large budget, and since we can't buy it, just partially buy it, partially like rent it. So we reserved some HPC for some companies, for just the ones who need. Then it comes to data. So as you said, various companies will come and they will need different data. So we can just offer what's already open, and we can advocate for the things that are still not open, like some medical data. We can advocate that, hey, companies do need that, open it up. We do not control the data as an agency. So we can't give data. So the way we're going to tailor it is through those individual expert consultations. This is our, the key factor. So the company gets only what they need. It's no longer a group consultation. It's 80 hours with each expert, up to 80, on whatever topic you need to catch up so you can finalize your product and go certify it.
Nice.
We'll see.
I'm also looking at the questions that we are receiving, and there are quite a lot, so I may try to integrate them in the conversation, or maybe we'll touch them later on. But going from this, I want to go to a more political question, and I see some related questions from the audience as well. So as you can guess, that's the question for Benedictas now. So we're talking about regulation all morning, right? And some would argue that maybe we do not need, that strong of regulation because, while it's important for safety of course, then I know it puts us like EU at a disadvantage in comparison, to US or China, that do not regulate that much. So, what is your point of view on this? Should we regulate? Should we go even further? There are some questions from the public who are asking, should we go even further than the EU in Lithuania and go even stricter, or how do we make that right balance before, in case of regulating and still keeping the market competitive?
Okay, so maybe starting off with the balance, I think we need to change this preconception of there needing to be a balance between innovation and regulation. Even though these seem like very contradicting kind of fields, I believe that, in this, for example, AI Act, they can go somewhat hand in hand. We, of course, need to develop all of the other areas and the pillars that I mentioned, infrastructure, data, etc. But if we bring all of those together, as well as simplifying regulation, we can truly compete, I think, in the global market. We should not definitely over-regulate and go further than what the EU is doing. Sometimes we also advocate for some minor changes in the acts that follow. But really, they should go hand in hand. We have this way of life, I think a lot of us enjoy here in Europe. We do not want to be kind of surveilled or made I don't know, whatever else you can do pretty much with AI in terms of human rights infringements. It really depends, of course, what the regulated entity is. And then we should have those kind of really, really differing. So if we have a bigger company, they have kind of different ideas of what regulation is for them. And we should really take care of the smaller ones because they don't have legal teams, they're not capable of understanding what is really behind those hundreds of pages of regulations. And this is where the government should come in, chip in and try to help these companies just make sure to prove pretty much what they're doing and that what they're doing is not illegal. And I don't think any of us are doing anything illegal. Now we have to prove it. That might be an administrative burden, a financial one, but the government should try and kind of decrease this burden as much as they can.
Okay, thank you. And I'm seeing another connected question, so let's build on that even more. So someone is asking, what will stop SMEs and startups from using this sandbox as a launchpad and then moving to less regulated markets? So will anybody stop them?
There is one concern, and we thought of that from the very beginning. It's trust. It's as simple as that. If there is no trust, our sandbox cannot be successful, regulators cannot be successful, and at the end, the companies cannot be successful. I was asked this question in private discussion. So what happens if we come to the regulator or sandbox and we tell them what we're doing, and we tell everything what we plan to do? Well, I said, what happens if you don't? Then you're on your own. We can only be able to help businesses as long as they honestly disclose what they're planning to do, and we'll do our best to advise them whether this is the right way to go or whether they think this is the risky way to go. So yeah, trust as everywhere, but here it's one of the most important factors.
Yeah, I think we are hearing that question quite often. Those who are working with startups all the way, right? Like, should I tell my idea? Should I talk to anyone, or should I keep it a secret? Never keep it a secret. There are people willing to support you, and it's safe, it's secure, so just go and collaborate. And Sadie, you wanted to follow up.
And that's interesting, just to answer the question with a different perspective. The thing is the other way around. And when we did the regulatory sandbox, it's just like to give you a climbing stone. Why? Because now we all regret the fact that we have a foreign company putting product on the market in Europe and they are well prepared. They don't have the GDPR or some regulatory constraint that we do have. But now, so they need to comply with the regulation before putting their product on the market. And that's a way to support you. And if we can help a startup to develop their product, to have it trustworthy in Europe, and if they want to reach out the rest of the world, we're happy to support that. That's the point.
Sure. And talking about support as well, there is one more question, and I think it's a good one. People are asking, is the establishment of an AI regulatory sandbox sufficient to support SMEs in AI innovation? Or should the government introduce other measures? So is it enough, or should we do more?
It's not enough. It's definitely not enough, but that's the reality. But after that, I'll leave the floor to Romanes. The thing is that at least we impose to member states to support businesses and to support startups. But the thing is that the regulatory sandbox, without startups, without innovation project, without new product, it's not working. Without trust and dialogue, it's not making any sense. We can have thousands of regulatory sandbox, but if nobody uses it, it's pointless. So.
I would say that this is one of the tool There could be plenty other tools. AI Factory is another tool. There's this thing called technical experimentation centers, which are developing. There are EDIGS, innovation centers. They also offer different services for the companies. So think of us as one of the tools. So in some cases, it will, depending on what the company is doing, it will be very beneficial. In some cases, we'll be able to help just maybe 50%. In some 90%. But it's a tool that you can use.
Okay, so we heard that the government in Lithuania is already doing a lot, right? And we probably still need more, right? So I want to go to Benediktas on this and ask, what's your personal vision for Lithuania in 2030, let's say, in terms of AI development?
Okay, good
what
question.
you would like to see,
I don't think it differs that much from the ministry's perspective, so it's good to have that, I think we need to kind of create this good environment for the businesses to build up their capabilities, and the way we do it is just a start. So all of the measures that I've just mentioned previously, they're just the beginning. It's only been 1 year for most of them, or maybe several years. And the more the companies communicate with the government, with the regulator, the more we can see what these companies need, and the more we can facilitate that in the future. So I think just having this broad vision of, not calculable as well, having the best environment, I think the satisfaction of the companies would be the most important kind of thing to really evaluate that.
Lovely. And our time is up, so maybe if you want to share one last remark or advice for our audience, that's the time to do it now for everyone.
I do. To finish with one quick topic, and if there's one thing you can bring out of this session, is this was already mentioned, but I really, really want to stress this. The goal is to regulate not the technology, but the application of the technology. And I do like, my team knows, I do like analogies, and sometimes they are good, and sometimes they need improvement. But this one is a good one. So imagine that there's a missing child, right? This happens in Lithuania, unfortunately, or kidnapped child. And the police drone just starts flying and identifying everybody, because we know how the child looks like, we might know how the suspect potential looks like. And they are flying over Vilnius or other city, and they're identifying everybody in real time. This is a technology that goes under unaccepted, right? But since, well, not the technology, the use cases, you identifying people with biometric identification in real time, but you have a good cause. So not the technology, but the use of it, because there's a big difference. I hope you get it.
Anything else? Sure.
Sure. For me, I think I just reiterate my last point. Just don't be afraid of the government, the regulator. We're here to help. We're trying to kind of facilitate the businesses that you are trying to build, and we're here for you, and not to kind of put more obstacles in front of your way. So yeah, feel free to communicate as much as you want.
And I completely wanted to say what Benedict has just said. So, but the point is that we are here to help, and also we are not going to treat you like child, because we also need to learn from you how we can regulate something we don't understand, and you understand it better than us. And we really focus on the shared learning, and we know what we don't know and what we need from you as well. So if you want to have a better regulation, just get closer to the regulator. And I think it's the more realistic approach.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Romanas, Benedictas, and Sadia, for such a wonderful discussion and sharing your insights. And thank you, everyone, for coming to this event. I think the message is very clear that the new era of safer AI is already here. You cannot hide from it, so better just collaborate with a regulator, with the government, with supporters of the innovation, and let's bring that and let's create the vision of Lithuania as a AI country, right? Thank you so much for joining us. It's been great.